reasons to complain. There's so much wrong in the world, and I wish things were different, 'cause I've got a little girl. The more we talk about it, the more we're giving it life. The more we stress about it, we're bringing stress to our lives. If you want love, if you want peace, if you want a better world for all humanity, be the change, be the change that you want to see. Oh, be the change that you want to see. Be peaceful if you want to have peace. If you want love, then love you should be. Be the change that you want to see. Yeah. Be the change that you want to see. I wanted revolution. I wanted to take a stand, tear down injustice, and lift up the common man. Without love, it's pointless anyway. I decided to be loved so that I could make a change, yeah. If you want love, if you want love, if you want peace, if you want a better world for all humanity, be the change, be the change, be the change that you want to see. Oh, be the change that you want to see. Oh, be peaceful if you want to have peace. If you want love, then love you should be. Be the change that you want to see. Yeah, be the change that you want to see. What the world needs now is a little more love. What the world needs now is just a little more of your peace. Oh, love, we've got to be. Yeah, be the change that you want to see. Spread your love all around. It's time to get off the sideline. I need you, and I know you need me. God, you are. Oh, you are. You are, you are. God, you are my joy. Joy is what you are. God, you are my peace. Peace is what you are. God, you are my love. Love is what you are. God, you are my joy. Joy is what you are. My joy, my peace, my love. My joy, my you are. God, you are my love. Oh, love is what you are. God, you are my joy. Joy is what you are. My joy, my peace, my love. My joy, my peace, my love. God, you are my strength. Strength is what you are. God, you are my help. Oh, help is what you are. And God, you are my life. And life is what you are. God, you are my joy. And joy is what you are. You are my joy, my peace, my love. 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 God, you are my joy. Oh, yeah, yeah. Na, 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 na. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace like a river. I've got peace in my soul. There is love all around me. So much love all around me. So much love in my soul. I've got joy like a river. I've got joy like a river. So much joy in my soul. I've got peace like a river that passes all understanding. Peace like a river. Oh, I've got peace in my soul. And there is love. I'm surrounded by the arms of love. Peace
Hey, everybody.
Oh, good
Happy
morning.
Sunday.
Happy Sunday.
Good morning. Wherever you are, it is a good day, and
Yes, it
it is
is.
good to be here with all of you. Let us begin, as we always do, with prayer. And today, our prayer champion, Lavonda Elam, will lead us in prayer.
Morning, beautiful family. It's good to be with you. I truly do miss you. And I greet you today in peace and solidarity and gratitude and deep love for our community as we gather today to commune in service, in class, and in prayer. So let us close our eyes and go within, move into our hearts as we know the truth of our being. Infinite beloved Spirit, I come today knowing that there is one power, one presence, one truth, that there is one life source and life energy that is the mastermind, the creativity behind all that there is. And that I call you Mother, Father, God. I call you love. I call you perfect wisdom. I call you absolute truth. I call you the divine substance that is the pureness of who I am, that is the peace of who I am, that is the wholeness of who I am, that is the sanity of who I am. And I'm so grateful to know that everything that you are, God, in the large, I too am in the small, that everything that God is, so too are you, that we are divined and into this mold of God's perfect being, God's perfect vision, God's perfect knowing, and that there is no separation. For right where we are connected to God and its goodness, and that we are connected to each other and each other's goodness that is circulated over and over again, and that we are in divine harmony and companionship with spirit, and that it is all well, that it is endless, and that we are at one in this union, that we are one in the spirit, and that spirit is at one with us all. And it is from this place of knowing that I release at this moment any doubt, any fear, any worry, knowing that all this is temporary and that God's got our back, that right where we are exactly where we're supposed to be, and that we come together today, that we convene today, that we get to love upon each other today, knowing that this service and our time together is blessed, that we love upon our collective call for CSC and for our beloved pastors, as we know that the mind of God is with them, the love of God is with them, that the love of God is moving and having their being all over their teachings, and that we come together in the understanding of this teaching, and we move and have our being in all the knowledge that we gain, that we move and have our being, knowing that we are empowered by the word, that we move and have our being, and that we lean in and dig into these teachings, knowing that we are the wealthful, we are the abundance and the prosperity, we are the spiritual economy that lifts us up and lifts our consciousness, and that the world knows and waits for us and holds on for us, as we know this to be true for our lives. So we come together aiming and leaning into the understanding that we are well fed by the spiritual nutrients that we digest today, as we remember whose we are. So with that, I am knowing that all is well. With that, I say thank you for the divine lives that we are. I say thank you for this knowing. I say thank you for the teacher and the teachings and the awakenings that are unfolding today. I say thank you for all of us that are joined here today. And with that, I release this word, knowing that God is always, as I stand in absolute expectation of a mind-filled and mindful, loving and learning experience. Know with me today, amen, ashe, and so it is.
Amen. Ashe,
Amen.
and so it is. Yes. Thank you, Lavonda. Powerful prayer. Yes. Well, we are here in week 3. We are going to, of course, move into looking at chapter 2 today, but we have, of course, some announcements and some things we want to share. So let's get into that, and then we'll move forward. So the first thing we want to remind you again and again, and remind you every week, that on Wednesday mornings at 7 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have prayer. We come together every Wednesday morning. I share that day's reading from the Daily Word, and then one of our prayer champions leads us in prayer. This week it will be Lavonda, as you just heard her lead us in prayer today. Here are the details. Here's the information. You can also go to our website, and when you scroll down, you'll see a calendar. And this information is also there in the calendar. But grab this information, put it in your phone, put it somewhere where you have easy access to, and join us on Wednesday morning. If for some reason you're not able to join us live on Wednesday morning, and we understand, particularly for our West Coast folks or those that are in other time zones, please use the playback number. You'll see the number that's there here on the screen, and you can actually use that number anytime. So if you want to hear a prayer and receive a prayer right now, you could call in. You don't have to press any buttons or anything. It'll ask for an ID. Just wait on the line, and the most recent prayer will begin to pray, and you can live in and be in that vibration of prayer. So you have access to that 24/7, the most recent prayer. Hang on the line, and it will play just by using that number. Now, additionally, we recognize that there's something that we do in person at CSC every Sunday. We have our altar where you can leave your worries at the door. And that is an opportunity for you to release that thing that is on your heart and mind, so that you can be prepared for service, but also so that we and our prayer champions can pray with and for you and know the truth. And so many may not be aware, if you get a welcome packet, we actually have this email address in the welcome packet as well. So if you have a prayer request, you can actually send us a prayer request to prayerchampions@celebrationsc.org. We know that many of you saw this in our email that went out Friday and have sent in prayer requests. We are holding the truth. We are knowing the truth with you. And so at any point, if you have a prayer request and you want us to hold you in mind specifically, we know there's so many things going on right now across the planet. Do not hesitate to email us. And again, we are in prayer daily. We are in prayer weekly, and holding and knowing the truth. And it's beneficial for us to know sort of what's happening in the community and how to hold the highest watch for each and every one of you. So please, keep that in your contacts, and feel free to email us anytime, and know that we will be holding the truth with and for you.
Absolutely. And though we cannot be there physically, though you cannot leave your worries on the altar for those that have had that experience, when you do that, when you press that send button, imagine yourself releasing it, letting it go, leaving that worry as if on the altar, right? Because the altar of our heart, we're connected. And so we leave our worries there. Once you hit that send button, it is gone. It is released, and it's on its way for us to hold and pray knowing the truth. So please use that anytime you want.
Yes, yes. The next thing is that today is God Talk Sunday. It's the third Sunday of the month, which means that we have the God Talk. The God Talk is a forum that we've created to support folks in asking questions. How do I apply these teachings directly to my life? What's going on? As we are in this global pandemic, we want to focus on loss and grief. We know that there have been transitions of loved ones that are close to us. There have been transitions of loved ones that are close to you. And within our community, we're also grateful that many of our community who were ill have recovered, and so we recognize that there's so many things that are happening. Even if you've experienced illness, there's a trajectory that you actually still need to move through as you're recovering physically, to also recover spiritually and emotionally. And so we want to be able to support you in that. So the God Talk is a closed forum. It's a private forum. What happens at the God Talk stays at the God Talk. So we're going to move that to Zoom. It won't be streamed. It won't be recorded. And so in order to get the link and the password, you need to be on our mailing list. We've sent that link out to those that are on our mailing list as of Friday. If you're not currently on our mailing list, I just want to make sure you see this info. So if you're not currently on our mailing list, if you text welcome to this phone number, 347-472-1078, you'll be added to our mailing list, and then also you'll actually automatically receive an email with the link to join the link and the password to join the God Talk. Again, but the only way you can get that info is via email. So if you know you're on the mailing list, double check, make sure that you got the email from Friday. What we're also doing is anyone that's currently on the mailing list, there should be an email that goes out as we end today. So about 12:30, there'll also be an email. So we want to make sure everyone has the link. But of course, because of security and privacy issues, not only with the God Talk, but of course, technologically and the things that are happening with Zoom, we need to keep that meeting as secure as possible. So we can't share that out outside of sharing it directly with those who are on our mailing list and choosing to be on our mailing list. Okay.
Right. And God Talk starts around 1 o'clock for an hour.
Mm-hmm.
And as PG said, we will not be recording it. So if you want to participate or just be in there to hold space for others as they share and as they ask questions, what we found is that sometimes and most times when someone else asks a question, it's also a question that you may have had.
Mm-hmm.
And so it's good to just be there and hold space as others move through whatever experience they're having, whatever questions they have. And we allow Source to use us to answer those questions. So 1 o'clock.
Yes. 1 o'clock. All righty. Well, it is time for us to go within and for our meditation. PY is going to lead us and guide us as she always does, with love and with care and with much grace and prowess. So I will happily step aside and leave you in her hands.
Well, good morning again, everyone. This month, we have been focusing on the idea and the affirmation and the truth that I am one with all that is. And I selected this specifically knowing the text that we would be studying this month and how Eric Butterworth talks about the allness, that each of us were the eachness within the allness. And as PG shared last week, there's something about not just learning or memorizing, but digesting things. And as I like to say, there's something more important than just regurgitating. You can have all the information in the world, but if you haven't experienced God within yourself, then it's just information. And so we use meditation as a way to touch the allness, as a way to transcend our individual selves, as a way to connect and to drop into that space where the allness resides, where peace resides, where love resides. And so meditation is a beautiful opportunity to touch the allness. As we learned in TM and as we talk about in TM, it's an easy, effortless transcendence because we want to go to that place of the pure bliss and love and peace and joy, what feels good to us. And so as when we close our eyes, we just relax our body and allow ourselves through whatever mechanism to just make that deep dive. So today, we want to experience ourselves as one with all that is. So let's close our eyes right here and right now. And as we close our eyes, we feel a sense of peace come over us. As we close our eyes, our focus is no longer on the external world. It is on the breath. It is on the physical sensations that we might be having in our bodies. But it's also on this idea of connection. With our eyes closed, the internal world becomes more apparent, more enlivened, more real. With our eyes closed, the breath becomes the energetic way in which we travel, deep into the core of our being. So let us focus now on the breath without judgment. Let us focus now on the breath in unconditional love of that which is flowing. And whether the breath is smooth or constricted in some way, we judge it not. For it may take us a moment to relax into this present. And from this place of relaxation, we begin to notice and lovingly take a hold of the breath. Bring your focus to the breath and to the low belly, connecting the mind, the body, and the spirit as one. Inhale through the low belly now. Inhale. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Releasing past where we think there's air, there is more. Inhale through the low belly again. Inhale. Hold it there. Open the mouth and release. Inhale through the low belly, now up through the rib cage. Inhale. Hold it there, expanding the sides of the body, the front and the back. Open the mouth and release. Inhale through the low belly, up through the rib cage, making more room in these vessels. Hold it there. And release. Inhale all the way up through the heart now. Inhale. Expanding the heart, shoulder blades draw down the back. Hold it there. And release. Again, in and all the way up through the heart. Hold it there. New set point, new reality. And release. Inhaling full and complete all the way in and up through the heart now. Hold it there. This time, close the lips and exhale through the nose. I am one with all that is. I bring that to my breath. I release and make room for more of all that is. I give myself permission with each breath, drawing in more of all. Exhaling, making room for more of the all. A few rounds of breath here on your own. As our body relaxes here, in your mind, bring your focus to the heart space. Imagine light there. With each inhale, it expands. With each exhale, it contracts. Inhaling, expanding outside of the body now. Filling up the room that you occupy. Releasing and drawing more energy in. Inhale, expanding beyond the walls of the building where you sit. Releasing and drawing more in. Expanding on the inhale. covering and blanketing the city that you live in and we all live in. Drawing more of that love and comfort in. Blanketing this continent, inhaling. Drawing more of it in. Imagine this love, this energy, this allness as it spans the globe. Inhale. Releasing, drawing all of that life force back into you. Imagine now your body there, floating, one with all that is. And as we go into our silent time, the mind wanders, it's okay. We come back to the sensation, the feeling, the allness. I will monitor the time. You just enjoy the experience. With our eyes still closed, we begin the easy return. Whether we find ourselves free-floating in space that is connected to the outer space, or whether we are floating in the space of the inward knowing. We allow the sensation that we've given ourselves, the time that we've given ourselves, to be recorded now in our bodies, a place that we can return to at any time, easily on the breath, easily by closing the eyes, easily by reminding ourselves that we are one with all that is. Slowly making our way back into a more physical, individualized expression of the all. Maybe we wiggle the fingers and the toes, or maybe we stretch a little with the eyes closed. Maybe we breathe in more deeply and release the breath. And now bring your palms together at heart center and lightly pressing your thumbs into your sternum right there where the heart chakra is. Just pausing for a moment and noticing the beating of the heart, the allness that's been operating the whole time. Bow our chin to our fingertips, elongating the back of the neck and the spine. Nice and easy. Slowly fluttering the eyes open, taking in maybe the fingertips and maybe the floor in front of us. Inhale. Raise the chin, raise the gaze. Namaste.
Yes, yes. All right. So we have so much to cover, and I'm looking forward to getting into this. The first thing, for those of you may be joining us for the first time, this masterclass is based on and inspired. We're studying Spiritual Economics by Eric Butterworth. So if you do not have the book, please go out and get the book. You can get it digitally as a Kindle or iBooks. You can also get the audiobook. One word of warning: if you get the audiobook, you still want to get either the hardcover or the digital book. And I'm going to highlight some things today. There's so many things that are omitted from the audio. As great as the audio is, and I use it and have used it for years. For instance, if you go back to our first week, our first class was all about the preface and the introduction. That's not in the audio, but it goes even deeper as we start to look at some beautiful examples and some beautiful things that were omitted. I'm assuming for the sake of time and convenience. So make sure if you have the audio that you also have the written copy. The next thing is that in order to support you weekly, we want to make sure that you can send in questions. So if you have a question as you're reading, you can send that to truthsunday@celebrationsc.org. S as in center, C as in spiritual. You can see it there on the screen, .org. And what we'll do is we'll incorporate some or all of the questions as we're able to throughout the week. So we actually have a question that's related to last week's chapter. So we're going to look at that and speak to that. I think it's a good question, and I think it's something that everyone can relate to, or many people can relate to in different ways. So here's the question. My question is related to the affirmation, which I'm shortening here. The whole universe of creativity and substance are present as my never-failing resource. I'll attempt to be brief by saying that my husband and I are trying to navigate full-time jobs, mine now 100% teleworking, his a temporary essential position that requires him to be present. He was laid off from his usual position within the same company. And childcare for our 3-year-old. We also have a teen who is not a challenge and is self-managing her virtual schooling situation very well. Since I'm at home with a toddler, that essentially means it's not feasible for me to truly work during the day. My job is awesome and flexible, so I can actually work whenever I need to in order to get my hours in. But trying to work 8 hours beginning at 6 p.m. Once my husband gets home is not healthy and not something I want for myself and my family. They have also assured me that if I need to go part-time myself in order to manage life in these times, that would be no problem. But I have never considered that in the past because my salary is our primary source of income, and my working part-time, which seemed to be inviting financial hardship. that we have worked hard to alleviate over the past year. I have definitely vocalized that we can't afford for me to work part-time on multiple occasions. I, of course, recognize that this is not a prosperous mindset. We have both asked our parents to help us out, and to make this longer than intended story shorter, we now have grandparents that are stepping in and going out of their way to help out with the little one, and I'm so grateful. Where I'm hung up is whether the decision to ask our parents to step in is a matter of creativity and substance, making itself known and prompting us to make use of other resources, or if it's acting from desperation instead of inspiration, as you have frequently advised us to be watchful of. I seem to have a hard time in general determining whether I'm trying to take the reins and figure out how to make things happen, or if I'm being open and receptive to divine inspiration. Sorry for the lengthy backstory, but I'm hoping the context helps the question make sense. So this is a good question, and I'm sure many of you are hearing this and you're like, yeah, I get it. Oh, yeah, that sounds like me. I'm so glad you asked this question, because this is what I've been working through or dealing with, right? And I'm sure at varying levels, we've all experienced this at one point in our lives. So this is good, and I want to go back to something that I think is important, because the answer is actually rooted in the statement that was quoted from the text. And so in the text, and this is the very end of the last chapter. Actually, let's go back. Let's go to that. Let's see, it's the end of the last chapter. Let me go back there. I do think it's important. Because, you know, it's cool that it was shortened, I know, for length, but it's, I think, important that we actually read it in its entirety. So not only was it an affirmation, it was really a statement, and it was a command, right? That Eric Butterworth says, resolve that you will live and think and work as if you really believed that the whole universe of creativity and substance were present in every project of your work and every transaction of your investments as your never failing resource, right?
Goodness.
And so he's admonishing us to begin to live this way. And so from your question, one of the things that becomes interesting and illuminating is for you to think about, to what extent, before you reached out to your parents and your in-laws, had you resolved to live and think this way? Because it's beautiful, and I'm so grateful, and I was so happy to hear and read that you have your parents and your in-laws that are there to support you in this way, right? There are many people that would love to have that and don't have that for varying reasons. Sometimes it's just because of distance, right? Not because of an unwillingness from parents or from grandparents. So it's beautiful that they're there, but what we have to think about, and this is with anything that we do, the act or the action is not the thing. It's the consciousness that precedes it, right? And so this is why you can have all of the help or support and assistance in the world from your in-laws and from your parents, but if you're still in the mindset of, we can't afford for me to work part-time, you will still experience the affirmation, the manifestation or the demonstration of that way of thinking. So it's important, beautifully, now that you have this support and you have this assistance and you have this help, that you resolve that you will live and think and work as you really believe that the whole universe of creativity and substance are present right here and now in everything that you do, including your part-time work. Because if you don't manage that consciousness, then again, even the support that's here, that's right here and right now, will not be what you want it to be, or it's all of a sudden it's going to get weird, or it's going to get shaky, or all of a sudden you don't trust it, or all of a sudden they start acting funny and change up or say it's too much. And what that would only be a reflection of is the preceding belief that has still been in place and hasn't been dismantled, hasn't been disintegrated, right? Hasn't been transformed.
So what you now have is the grace of consciousness
Yes, yes.
to support you in shifting your consciousness, right? The grace of having your in-laws and your parents there to support you as you now become conscious and aware of the thought patterns that you've had. And so we're not saying to eliminate the grandparents and start fresh. We're saying that the grace of God is sufficient.
Yes.
And so it has provided you with support as you change your consciousness. Many times people will come to us and they're like, I'm going to leave my job, right? And for some people, that's a beautiful strategy, and they can do that because they've already in some way shifted their consciousness. But to just jump out there and having not done that, it usually doesn't work out very well. The same thing is true here. As you continue to work and as you first have now realized, wait, I've been saying some things that do not support a prosperity consciousness. And at the same time, the grace of God has supported me in shifting my thinking. And so we don't beat up on ourselves when we become aware. We just now realize how much, even in our unawareness and our unconsciousness, we have been continually supported.
Yes.
And that's prosperity consciousness, realizing that as well. So it's about shifting this thinking. What else can you think now?
Yeah.
About the grace and the sufficiency of God.
Right. Right. There's a tool I love that Abraham Hicks recommends in Asking It Is Given. If you've read that book, there are 23 processes in the second half of the book. One of the ones that I love, and if you've ever taken a class with me, y'all know I share this one all the time, the Book of Positive Aspects. Right. And so what the Book of Positive Aspects are, and this is technically even related to just doing gratitudes, as you have this beautiful support and you have this time and you're able to work in this way, you could focus on what are the positive aspects of this new way of working? What do I like about you? What do I love about you? What are your positive aspects? Or you could do that about your in-laws and your grandparents, to keep your mind and your mindset in the gratitude, not just for them in terms of who they physically are and how they're showing up. Because remember, they are simply an expression of God, an expression of creativity and substance in your life. And so it's important that not only do you vocalize gratitude to them, but that you consciously take the time to write down, what are the positive aspects? What do I love about having them supporting me in this way? What do I like about it? What are their positive aspects? And you just fill up one sheet of paper, right? Writing those positive aspects about this, which is now keeping your consciousness in the affirmative around this thing, acknowledging abundance, acknowledging substance, acknowledging that God is right here, right now. And what does the principle say? It's very clear, right? What you focus on expands. What you focus on grows. And so as you focus on that, that is only going to get bigger. It's only going to get wider. It's only going to become more supportive. It's only going to become easier. It's only going to become greater, because that's the nature of the law.
And it's a beautiful tool to use as part of your spiritual practice. It can replace whatever journaling exercise or that you've been using in the past. So if you did a page of positive aspects a day for 30 days.
Yep. And that puts you in this resolving that you will live
absolutely
and think and work as if.
As if.
Yeah. Awesome question. Oh, this is so good. And I'm seeing in the comments, I'm seeing a lot of people are like, oh my God, great question. Great question. I can so relate. Awesome. And just, we see y'all, we can't call out every name, but we see you all. And it's so cool to see folks that are connecting in from all over. It's really, really good to be connected in this consciousness. So let's dig into the next chapter. Chapter 2, Your Fortune Begins With You. And this, this chapter is another, it's tight, but it's right kind of chapter. And it really, really is all summed up in this underlying idea in the title of the chapter, Your Fortune Begins With You. But we're going to look at a couple words. So I hope you have your notes and you're ready to write out those things and have those definitions. And we're also going to look at a couple affirmations. There's really only one affirmation in the chapter, but I sort of grabbed another affirmation based on something that he shares in the chapter, which really excites me. So this first piece here, and we'll just start from the first highlight, where he writes, "It is an important moment in your life when you discover for yourself the great truth that things may happen around you and things may happen to you, but the only things which really count are the things that happen in you. You may have precious little control of the elements or the fluctuation of the stock market or the unpredictable behavior of people. However, you live in a world of your consciousness, which is the sum total of the thoughts of your mind, and you can control what goes on in your mind.
Underline that, double score, double underline.
You can control what goes on in your mind. And this is so important. This is everything that we teach, right? That no, you can't control people. You can't control the stock market, right? All of these things on a collective consciousness, yes, we're influencing that. But what we absolutely have control over as we live in our own world of consciousness is what goes on in our mind. And that's what then determines the first manifestation of our emotion and then the second manifestation of what's actually manifesting in our lives. This is why we love the work. Shout out to Byron Katie.
Yes.
We have 2 sermon series on the work. If you want to dig into that, the first one is called the work, and the second one is called Free Your Mind. Check out either one of those series because it's helping and supporting in that idea of starting to question your thoughts and look at what's going on in your mind. And as Byron Katie loves to say, when I believe my thoughts, I suffer, right?
And this is a beautiful opportunity to really witness the unfolding of your mind and your thoughts. And whether you're living with someone or whether you're right now alone in your home, really the only person you're living with is you. Right? Because there can be a whole host of people around you 24/7. But if you really step back and witness your own thoughts, no one else is in there but you. It might be a memory of your mother or your cousin and them, but the only person that keeps bringing those memories up and believing those thoughts is you. And therefore, you're the only one that can shift your own thinking.
Absolutely. And so this next paragraph that's highlighted here is important to recognize. There is a great idea that you will encounter again and again on your quest. You are a living magnet, constantly drawing to you the things, the people, and the circumstances which are in accord with your thoughts. In other words, you are where you are in experience, in relationships, even financial conditions, because of what you are, which is where you are in consciousness. He says, right?
Ouch.
Now, this is not an easy teaching. You may want to reject it and put it aside. In the Bible, when Jesus began to lay out the hard laws of this teaching, it says many of his disciples drew back and no longer went about with him. And thus it has always been. However, if you are willing to accept full responsibility for your life, then even as your level of thought has put you where you are, or at least contributed to it.
So it's not always just you. It's a vibrational match as well.
Right. So by a change of consciousness, you can change the experiences of your life. And this is the interesting part about how metaphysical law works, that we have to accept both sides of it, right? So often people take metaphysical teachings to just teach pie in the sky, to just teach get, to just teach money, to just teach manifesting cars and manifesting this and manifesting that. We're always manifesting, whether you call it good or bad, whether you call it positive or negative, we're always manifesting. That's just a fact of life. What we have to accept the idea that it is through our consciousness that we get whatever we get, no matter how we label it, right? And we could choose not to label anything bad, right?
Which would be a good thing.
Right? But that we have to accept that responsibility, reminds me, to whom much is given, much is required, or, with great power comes great responsibility. So we accept full responsibility for our life, even as our level of thought may have put us in a condition or at least contributed to it, because we don't live in shame or blame.
Absolutely.
So by a change of consciousness, we can change the experiences of our life, right? Huge, huge thing that we must come to accept.
And by this change of consciousness, we take our power back. If I'm watching 45 and I'm getting worked up, I've given my power to 45. Now, I might not agree with 45, but I don't let him occupy my mind once I've stopped watching him. I don't even let him occupy my thoughts more than, is he giving me information or not?
Right.
And I get to determine, no, this is not beneficial to me. Whatever he's saying is not beneficial to me. And then I find my sources that are beneficial.
Absolutely.
And even with all of that, I'm still the one making the choice of what I listen to, when I listen to it, and how I listen to it.
Yes, 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 yes. And so I just skipped ahead a bit, but one of the things he's talking about here, and we understand in terms of the economy, the global economy, or the economy of a nation, economists agree upon this idea that business conditions always tend to reflect the level of confidence of the people. And so we've accepted this underlying idea that how people feel and how people think influence the economy. That's something that's going on now, is this conversation around when do countries or states open up, right? A big part of that is about the confidence of people, because you could open up every restaurant in New York now.
Every Broadway show, every concert, every
Right.
sports venue.
And they're probably still going to be empty, right? And so then that would actually not be beneficial to the economy, because commerce wouldn't continue, right? Dollars wouldn't be flowing. There wouldn't be an exchange. So it's important as we hear politicians talking about opening up, and then we see what the economy is doing, it may or may not be in agreement with that based on its perception of the level of confidence of the people. Right.
And right now, our confidence has to do with our sense of safety.
Right.
And so no matter what they open up, if we don't feel safe, then that would be ridiculous of us to go out into an environment where we don't feel safe.
Right. And so what Butterworth then invites us to understand, as he writes here, and so on a more personal level, your own prosperity or lack of it will also reflect the level of your thinking. Just as we accept that on this global or even national level, we accept it. It is also true on a personal and individual level. There's just no way around it. Your fortune, good or bad, begins with you. Financial crises, even recessions or depressions, so far as they affect your pocketbook or bank account or job stability, begins with your reactions of faith or fear. Let's all take a breath. Because there's a lot going on in the news. We're hearing about the historic unemployment numbers. We're hearing about all of these things. All these things are going on. Financial crises, even recessions and depressions, so far as they affect your pocketbook or bank account or job stability, begin with your reactions of faith or fear. Right? And so this is why we're coming together each week, and this is why we're specifically doing this teaching, because what we want to do is amplify and magnify and feed your faith. Because there are a trillion other things out there that can contribute to feeding fear. And so then it's interesting. He's not saying, and hear this, right? The spiritual life is not about avoiding things, right? I've experienced layoffs. I've experienced, not having enough, right? All of these things, we experience that as human beings in this human form. But our reaction to it is the determining factor.
Right.
Right. And in truth, reacting is the issue, right? We can respond. Right. Right. And so this is where we're getting at, right? This is what's going on. And so he goes on, you do not cause economic conditions, though we all share in the cumulative consciousness that is the cause. But if you give them reality by your negative thoughts or conversations about them, you become synchronized with an energy flow which has as swift an influence on your life as the light that bathes the room when you throw the switch. Think about that for a second. Like how quickly, when you align with, I want light in this room, and you flip the switch, right? You're aligned with that idea, and you change the condition of the room. You change the condition of the space. And so when we align with ideas that are negative, when we align with those ideas that are not beneficial, we then change the condition of our mind.
And the beautiful thing underneath that, flipping the switch, that means the light was already there.
Yep.
That's the faith. That's knowing, right? We go to the light. We don't second guess. Oh, is the light going to come on? We flip the switch knowing that it's there. And it's always been there. That's the consciousness that we're developing. Mm-hmm. And that doesn't mean going out there, my faith is bigger than my fear, and telling everybody else that their faith ain't bigger than their fear. It just means I operate with the switch on, with the light on.
Yes, yes.
I live from the light. I live with it on.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. And I'm just going to move forward because I want to make sure there's so much that we have here.
Yes.
So what you see highlighted here in blue, and this is something that if you don't have highlighted, you should, and probably rewrite it down. Your personal welfare begins with your consciousness. It is not what happens on Wall Street. It is not the state of the economy. It has its inception in the state of your mind. You can be prosperous when business is poor, and you can experience financial difficulties even when business is booming.
Well, if you think about that, that's true. Many people are still experiencing economic, in their personal lives, downturn, where supposedly the economy was doing so well. And that's not just the people that haven't amassed a lot of wealth. Right. There are people, and we say this over and over, that they are wealthy on book, on paper, but their consciousness is still poverty. And so they begin to hoard and do all these things. We talked about that last week. So your personal welfare begins with your consciousness. Now, I can see how, Jesus, when he was teaching all that stuff that he was teaching, how it dwindled down to 12 disciples. Because this takes a lot of shifting in people's thinking, right? There probably might have been 50 or 60 disciples, and now we have 12, right?
That's very interesting.
Right?
Yes, yes. And so we go on. Consider, if you will, the responsibility you have toward conditions as a whole. For what happens in your mind is reflected in your affairs, and is reflected in your affairs will have a definite, even if minuscule, influence upon the nation's business. There is no way out. You are always on the side of the problem, or you are on the side of the solution. Choose this day whom you will serve, right? I love how Abraham Hicks says it. We're not problem solvers. We're solution finders.
Solution finders, yes.
Right? And so that's a different consciousness for us to be in, right? It goes back to PY's question that she shared with us on when we had the God Talk Live on March 15th. She asked that question that we must ask ourselves: who do I want to be when this is over? And that puts you in the posture and in the direction of finding solutions. That puts you in the posture and the direction of serving humanity. That puts you in the posture of asking, what can I give? How can I be of service to myself, to my family, to my community, to my nation, to my world? Right. And for many of us, that means, as I'm saying that, I'm hearing something we used to affirm at Sacred Center, New York. Right. But, peace in my heart brings peace to my family, right? And on and on. So maybe I recognize that I need peace right now, and I need to learn to operate in peace. And so I'm going to tap into my meditation practice and be more deliberate, disciplined, and diligent about it. And I recognize that peace in my heart brings peace to my mind. Peace in my mind brings peace to my life. Peace in my life brings peace to my family. Peace in my family brings peace to my community. Peace in my community brings peace to my nation, right? Let there be peace on earth. And let it begin with me.
The other powerful thing about that question is it sets up a knowingness that there is an answer, that I don't have all the answers, and that my life to date has not brought me to the point at which I want it to. And so I can get still with that. Who do I want to be doesn't mean I have to run out and do anything. It's a place of inward stillness, connecting to this allness that is the place of all the answers and solutions. And what might come up might surprise you.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And so I'm moving down here to the highlight where we have failure or lack in your life is simply the result of continuously minusing yourself. Conversely, success and prosperity are the results of constantly plussing yourself. It is wise to take inventory occasionally. Are you dealing in minuses or pluses? Your negative thoughts of fear and worry are depleting your good faster than inflation erodes the value of the dollar, and your positive, optimistic thoughts add to your good more dramatically than compound interest increases your bank savings rather. And this is where we get into that idea. In this next piece, he takes us into the beautiful teaching and the parable of the talents. And at the end of that parable of the talents, something is shared here that is misrepresented and many times misunderstood. For unto everyone that hath shall be given, and he shall have abundance. But from him that hath not shall be taken away even that which he hath. Right? And so what this is talking about, even last week, we talked about that idea of onlyness. Oh, well, I only have this, or I only make that, right? That is subtly saying that I don't have enough. And the truth of life is, because we understand how consciousness works, right? And the law responds to what we're thinking, right? And says yes to it, no matter what it is. When we're in the minusing, right? When we're dealing in negative thoughts of fear and worry, what we are doing, we're saying to the universe, I don't have enough. I don't have enough. I don't have enough. And it says yes and amen. And so then that becomes the out picturing. So even when you are making, $10 an hour and you're like, that's not enough, right? And you're finding it hard to be grateful for that when you want to make $50 an hour or $250 an hour, right? If you're treating that as though it were not enough, the universe, again, by law, not by punishment, affirms that with you. It says, yes, I agree. And so when we plus ourselves and we take that same $10 an hour that we wish was $250 an hour, the universe, and you're like, I am grateful and thankful. I know that there's an infinite supply and this is more than enough to meet my needs. Then there's a plussing that happens and the universe says yes and amen, right? And this is absolutely true, right? This is not magic. It's literally true. This was also presented in the story of the loaves and the fishes, right? Now, according to the text and according to the story, it says that Jesus fed 5,000 men plus women and children. So he fed at least 10,000 or more people according to the story. But the very first thing that he did, one, there was compassion, right? There was compassion because he's like, I've been teaching and preaching and serving the people. And they've been out here all this time. People are hungry. We need them to eat, right? And so he said, disciples, go, gather up some food. We need to feed the people. And they came back, all we have is some loaves and fishes. It's not enough for these thousands of people. That's all we have. Now, they were in the minusing, right? But what Jesus did, he took what seemed to not be enough, and the first thing he does is he blesses it. He lifts it up to heaven, according to the story. Now, in consciousness, metaphysically, we understand that what that is doing, he was plussing it. Yes. He was remembering, but my God shall supply all of my needs. He was remembering and recognizing that which seems to not be enough can feed more than enough, and there will be much left over. And so by blessing it and calling it good in that moment, that which did not seem to be enough, of course, we know the miracle of the story, right? We're going to talk about miracles a little later. And so then that's why there was not only everybody ate, but there was enough. They had goodie bags.
More than enough. They had swag bags to take home.
They got to take food home. That's in the text, right? They didn't call them goodie bags, but it's in the text that there was food that folks had more than enough.
I love this plus and minus. It actually gives a whole new meaning to plus size. Woo! We all need to be on the plus side of life.
Yes.
Plussing all, and that's what that positive aspects is doing when you use that exercise.
And so as he highlights here in this text, this is not about simply the rich get richer and the poor get poorer, which certainly would appear to be a great injustice because it is. Actually, Jesus' statement puts in the symbolical language the kind of orderly law upon which the whole universe is constructed. Right? Whoever needs to hear this right now, wherever you are, if you do not think, you think what you have is not enough, right? Your unemployment may not be what you were making previously. But if you live in the vibration of this is not enough, I guarantee you that is what your experience will be.
And it won't matter how much it is.
Right? I'm amazed, and I was thinking back at the times that I've collected unemployment, that one time I was laid off. It was after the .com bubble burst back in I guess that was 2000, 2000. And I remember, getting unemployment. It was not what I was making, but I think back, right? I was a young husband. I actually, at that time, I had a baby on the way. And everything said that, oh my God, I should be scared and freaked out. And every time I think back to that moment, all I can think about is thriving. We had more than enough money. My layoff was actually a special layoff and fell into a certain law that they had to keep paying me for a certain period of time beyond the layoff. Plus, I was still eligible for unemployment. It was summertime. We were able to go away and go on vacation. And then right when I needed a new job, it came to me easily and effortlessly, right? And I literally never missed a beat. But I recognized that how that happened is not because I was special, right? But how that happened is because I was living in the plussing. I was living in the more than enough. I made a conscious decision because, what happened? I got laid off, and the very next day, we found out that Erica was pregnant with Malcolm. That's what happened. That's a recipe for folk to lose it, right? And again, for me as a young father, right? I was 24 going on 25 at the time, right? It's fascinating to me. But I made a conscious choice within my own being. I remember it clearly. We are going to be all right. All will be well. And I never looked back from that, right? I never looked back from that. And so the outpicturing of it is what it was. That's what the plussing and minusing is about. But that's also about when you believe that you have enough, you will have enough and more than enough. But when you believe that you don't, then that just magnifies, right? And as we say this each week because I think it's important. Both PY and I, we've been through it. We've experienced it, right? So we're not talking, some abstract stuff that we heard it works or we read that it works. We're talking about real deal life. And guess what? We're not special.
Nope.
Right? We may be spiritual teachers, we may be pastors, but we are not special. We're not unique. The law doesn't work for us in some special way that it doesn't work for you, right? And can't work for you in the exact same way.
Absolutely.
Right. All right. So I love this, and I wanted to highlight this because, as I said, there are things that aren't in the audio that are in the that are here in the text, and I love this example that he uses to help us understand a little bit more of this idea of how it works. And so he uses a magnet because we understand what a magnet is, and we played with magnets when we were kids. I don't know how much kids do that now because he was talking about this little horseshoe, but I'm sure depending on your age, you remember playing with a horseshoe shaped magnet and learning to understand how magnetism works. And so we understand how that works, and you have the shaved filings, and as the magnet is magnetized, it can attract other things easily and effortlessly. You can hold it; the things won't drop because they're connected to the magnet. But he says if you take an unmagnetized piece of steel, even if it is shaped like a horseshoe and painted red like the previous magnet, it not only attracts no filings, but even if you heap some filings on the steel, they will fall off at the first jostling. This is not favoritism or luck. It is basic universal law. Thus, in the same sense, you are constantly attracting to you the conditions you make inevitable by the quality of your thoughts. And see what happens, and I hope somebody else can hear this, right? But, this is the other thing that happens, right? Because you can take these affirmations and we're sharing the screens and you can share them all around and write them down and put Post-its all over your house. But it is just like an unmagnetized piece of steel, putting metal shavings on it, thinking that because it looks like a magnet, it's going to hold and attract that thing. But until it is magnetized, right? Until the quality of our thoughts that we make it, these words are so specific, inevitable. And we make it inevitable. Our good is inevitable. If we don't live in that consciousness, then it is just like putting metal shavings on something that look like a magnet, but it has no magnetism. And so again, plussing puts us in, it magnetizes us. Plussing makes us that thing that it can attract and draw things into us, onto us, right? And it makes us sticky, right?
In a good way.
And you want to be sticky, right? You want your good to stick to you. You want your good, your prosperity and all the good that you can imagine to stick to you, right? Not to hit you and just fall off, right? I think y'all get it, but I wanted to specifically highlight this because this is not in the audio. And I get the audio is convenient, but you just missed a powerful truth if all you did was listen to the audio. Okay? So there's a word that I want us to tap into and give us some definitions. He talks about the word demonstration here. And so I want to just look at this word. This is one to add to our definitions. See some of this. Here we go. Demonstration. This is a word that you may hear often within New Thought. It's in some ways, I think a word I like better than manifestation, but demonstration is the manifestation of your consciousness in your physical experience. And so then he goes on, he says, answered prayer then is a demonstration, right? And so always in our life, we are demonstrating our consciousness. We're demonstrating the quality of our thoughts. We're demonstrating the balance of our thoughts. I love the word that Reverend Michael Beckwith uses, our chronic thoughts or habits, right? That's the stuff that we're demonstrating. And that's important because so often we can get freaked out like, oh no, I had a thought that wasn't prosperous, right? So you're not going to immediately demonstrate that thing, right? But really what we're always demonstrating is the balance of our thoughts, the weight of our thoughts, right? That we're thinking over and over and over and over again,
the predominant pattern of our thought,
right? Consciously or unconsciously, right? So that's what a demonstration is, and so I think it's important for us to note that, and we can begin to use that word. I think even it just can help to shift our consciousness if we're constantly talking about manifest. We can move into the posture of demonstrating. Right.
And even with that, either one of those words, manifesting or demonstration, can become problematic if we use it against ourselves. And many times people, they begin to realize, oh, I'm demonstrating certain things, but they judge themselves because they now are aware that they've been demonstrating certain things, that they've been thinking certain things, or haven't been demonstrating things that they wanted. And so they're like, this isn't working. I don't know how to do it. And really all it is an opportunity to see our thoughts reflected in our experience. That's all it is. The dominant pattern of our thought reflected. That is all it is. Not to judge ourselves, but so that we can change it if we don't like the demonstrations that we're receiving. Right? It says 50 to 70,000, science says 50 to 70,000 thoughts per day. But what really happens is 90% of those are the same thoughts we thought yesterday. And if those thoughts are now demonstrating something unwanted, then we have to come up with and change the pattern of our thinking.
Yep. Absolutely. And so then what we understand here is that what we're doing, and for those of you who were able to experience our sermon series that we began this year with January through March, working with the law. It's important then that we understand what we're doing in our demonstrating is not trying to make something work. He says, however, in the minds of many students, it is a matter of making divine law work. You can't make law work. Law is an inexorable process. You are always working in you are always in the working milieu of law, as, for example, you are always under the influence of gravity. And so we are always working with the law. Please do not think that you're making something happen, right? Or you're making something work. That is a stage of development and beneficial to a point, but it will get you in a deep ego place if you really think that you're making it happen. Also, eventually something will show up that you can't fix or solve, or you're scared that you're not able to think your way out of it. But when you recognize that you're always working with the law, and this law is absolute and always available, and can cover all things, right? Then it's good, right? It's good that whatever shows up, you're like, oh, of course, this law can handle it. Let me align with the law. Okay?
Let me turn on the switch.
Yeah, let me turn on the switch, right? I'm skipping down here. In the metaphysical teaching of prosperity, the idea of demonstration, unfortunately, is often presented in terms of magic and miracles.
Dun, dun, dun.
All right. And I love this. There's so much good stuff here. So I'm going to go down. I want to read some of this, and then we're going to talk about it. So I'm just going down to this next highlight. The important truth is that you are a spiritual being with the allness of infinite mind within you. Whatever your needs may be, the answer is not to get God to give you more through some divine sleight of hand process, but rather to uncover and release your own imprisoned splendor. Avoid the temptation to try to work the law and thus to materialize the process. Again, it's work with the law, not work the law. Get your mind off of the idea of making a demonstration in life. Center your awareness on a deeper sense, and the demonstration will begin to make you. Now, here's where we get into it. Well-intentioned enthusiasts of new thought often echo the misleading cliche, expect a miracle. It is supposed to encourage one to expect more from life, which is good. However, it is walking right into a trap. So I say, against the grain of the majority of most contemporary teachings and teachers of truth, don't expect a miracle. If you center your consciousness in the expectation of miracles, you are playing with universal law, hoping for some magic abrogation of its inexorable activity. You are putting the whole weight of your consciousness on the side of belief in a universe of caprice. It is spiritual naivete, which dilutes all that you may have built up in the awareness of the changelessness of divine law. Okay. Now, I wanted to make sure that we used our time wisely. And so I was going to play the video today of Soul 21 singing Expect a Miracle for a host of reasons. If you haven't seen the Clark Sisters movie on Lifetime, which is doing amazingly well and it's like the best hit movie, thinking about them, we sang that hit by the Clark Sisters. And the title of it is Expect Your Miracle, right? And we have sung that song at CSC, and we've celebrated and we've clapped and we've danced and had a good time. And if you go back to that video, you will hear PY speak a little bit before the video about miracles. And this is what's important, because one of our texts here at CSC is A Course in Miracles. And we are in a complete agreement with Eric Butterworth as he says, don't expect a miracle, because what most people are doing is expecting magic. And even at the nice piece of encouraging one to expect more from life, right? But it is important that we understand that the general belief and understanding about what miracles are is the problem. Mm-hmm. Course of Miracles defines miracle very simply. Mm-hmm. A miracle is a shift in perception. A miracle, and where does perception happen? It happens in the mind. Mm-hmm. A miracle is not what happens out here. Mm-hmm. A miracle is not a demonstration or a manifestation. What a miracle is the very thing that we just read, right? Where he says the important truth is that you are a spiritual being with the allness of infinite mind within you. Whatever your needs may be, the answer is not to get God to give you more through some divine sleight of hand process, but rather to uncover and release your own imprisoned splendor. That can only happen within. Mm-hmm. And so it's true, because most people, and the rest of this text, we're going to be talking about luck, right? That's how they treat miracles.
Mm-hmm. And I like to, when I teach my classes, and it is interesting, because once I say what most people think of as the miracle is the effect of the miracle, mm-hmm. in some people it bursts their bubble because they've been conditioned to look for some magical demonstration, something happening in the world. But what A Course in Miracles is talking about is if I shift my thinking, my perception, then its projection into the world has to shift and change. And Butterworth even talks about that a little bit in this chapter. Mm-hmm. So what most people think of, like when the check shows up, mm-hmm. is the miracle. Mm-hmm. That's the effect of the miracle. The miracle was, at some point, I shifted my thinking around what is possible, the consciousness of abundance, and it had to show up in some way that was tangible for me to see in my world. Mm-hmm. So I always have people zero in on what is the real miracle here. Mm-hmm. What's the miracle? Mm-hmm. The miracle is not the check. The right. miracle is not the new job. The miracle is not the new lover. Mm-hmm. The miracle is I shift my thinking mm-hmm. around possibility and abundance mm-hmm. and prosperity. Mm-hmm. And what has to show up, because it's law, mm-hmm. that what I put my thought on, what I keep my mind on, as mm-hmm. the song says, has to be reflected in my world.
Absolutely.
So I no longer focus in on the effects of my miracle. Mm-hmm. I begin to know that I'm creating that by the pattern of my thought.
Yes.
And that is miraculous.
It is. Mm-hmm. And that's the only way that you can continue to demonstrate miracles in your life. Because this is the other thing. I remember so clearly a coach that I worked with years ago. I would have these awesome things happen. Mm-hmm. And then she would ask me, okay, Greg, so what were you thinking? How do you think, that came about? And I'm like, I don't know, just good stuff happened. Mm-hmm. And what she was trying to get me to understand was that Until I could identify the thought patterns that created the event, I was never going to be able to repeat it. And so then I was going to live in the randomness of life. I was going to live in the, some good happened here, some unwanted happened there, some wanted happened here, some unwanted happened there. And then I just think that life is random, and I'm not working with a universal law that works deliberately and specifically according to my consciousness. And so when you can identify that we can go back to the earlier question. So the grandparents said yes, and they're showing up in this wonderful way. What we have to come back to is, what was the pattern of thinking that must have supported this support in showing up? Oh, wait, well, I've been reading spiritual economics. Oh, wait, I've been using these affirmations. And even while I was holding a thought about not enough, I had spent enough time with these ideas of realizing that there must be an answer. There must be a solution. There must be support. Support is here now. Answers are here now. And it showed up easily and effortlessly. And so then we put and keep our attention there, which is why we gave that advice earlier, to do those things to keep you in gratitude around recognizing that your support and your help is there, right? A miracle is a shift in perception. The miracle happens in the mind. The miracle is never the thing.
Right.
Because the things are changeable. Right?
Always. Because the pattern of your thought is changeable.
Yeah.
Because that's beautiful to also realize that anything that's currently demonstrating in your life can also change as the pattern of your thinking changes, as the predominant pattern of your thinking changes, right? All of us go through that, the fluctuations, and we begin to become masterful at seeing, oh, wait, that condition caused me to step outside of myself. And now what do I need to think to align myself with the truth? All of us do it. All of us.
Yes, yes.
PG and I do it. And we're like, oh, okay, so that's what's showing up. It's good that it shows up, usually in smaller demonstrations before the larger demonstrations, so that I can still change my thinking. But there's there's no point on this continuum which you cannot change your thinking.
Yes, that's some good news.
Good news.
Good news. And Butterworth goes on talking about the same thing. Certainly all things are possible, not because God makes an exception for you by reason of your plea, but because your faith is the key to the kingdom of the power within you to apply the laws that transcend human limitation. Again, we say, don't expect a miracle. Don't reduce the practice of truth to the naive effort to coax a magic showing from a reticent God. If you really believe that you are entitled, we talked about entitlement last week, to the fullness of the kingdom, the resulting outforming may appear to be miraculous, for wonderful things can and will be done, but it is the natural fulfillment of divine law. It reminds me of another sermon you can go back to. I believe it's in the What is New Thought series. I'm not sure about that, but natural law is the sermon. It's one of the things that I love in reading and studying Ernest Holmes, and it's echoed in my study of the teachings and writings of Maharishi Mahesh Yogi. This idea that everything that we're doing and what we're operating in is natural law. It's not supernatural. It may appear supernatural. It may appear miraculous, but it is the natural fulfillment of divine law. The healing you long for, the overcoming you desire, the prosperity and success you have been praying for so persistently, even though you may feel there are fantastic odds to overcome, these things do not call for miracles, but for the disciplined application of divine law and the steady effort to know God.
Absolutely. I mean, A Course in Miracles even says, I'm entitled to miracles and that miracles are natural. It's natural because, first of all, we think. It's natural because we have the ability to control our experience through the things that we think. It's not something that you have to be taught. You're doing it anyway. Now you need to do it in your favor.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. The great ideal of spiritual seeking is to be in tune with the infinite. To traffic in such thoughts as only a miracle can save him and it is impossible, but I expect a miracle, is to be in tune with the indefinite. If you haven't highlighted that, if you don't have that underlined, right? Being in tune with the infinite versus being in tune with the indefinite. And when we say things like it's going to take a miracle, right? It's impossible, but I expect a miracle. Think about this. Get it clearly established in your consciousness. There are no miracles in an orderly universe. All things are possible under divine law. And so whatever happens, it's not a miracle. right? What I'm thinking about in this moment, we think about all of the things that take place in our life. What is it? The 4-minute mile? Is it 4-minute mile, right? We can run the mile in 4 minutes now. 2-minute mile? I'm sorry, 2-minute mile. Right now, at a point in history,
some people can.
Right, some people can. But at a point in history, it was believed that no human could. Right now, would we call it miraculous now that that happens, or we understand that it's natural? And we understand that part of the reason that more humans are able is because one person believed, and then they said, oh, he can do it, I can do it too. And it's natural. It's not a miracle. It's not a miracle. It may be amazing. It may be fantastic because, again, every human can't do that. But we wouldn't call it supernatural.
And if you think about, in terms of runners, what happens is over time, their thinking begins to shift about what's possible because they're doing it. Oh, I can run it a little faster, right? There's something within them. And then they prove it to themselves. And then they do it again, and they do it again, and they do it in their personal time, right? Becomes faster. And then all of a sudden, it looks like to the outside world, well, that was miraculous. No, there's something happened in their thinking that said, I can do this faster.
Yep. All right, so I'm looking at our time. We're going to move forward.
Oh, yeah.
We technically only have 10 minutes, but there's a couple of things that I want to make sure we get to. So one, we're right here where we're talking about luck, right? And this is very important. The belief in luck crowds out real faith and lulls all true initiative to sleep. And yet so many people think that prosperity and success are simply the results of good luck, and that financial reverses, unemployment, even illnesses are misfortunes or bad luck. It is the most flourishing excuse for all human difficulties. It soothes the conscience and presents the person as an innocent victim of an unknown sinister force. We say, in an almost pious declaration of self-defense, I couldn't do much about it. I was just unlucky, right? Long story short, God doesn't deal in luck, right? Luck is not what happens here. And it's interesting, too, because he talks about superstition and how this consciousness really pervades the life and minds of spiritual people. Traditional religion has often muddled the issue of gambling or playing the lottery by preaching the sin of gambling. There's nothing immoral about games of chance. Hear that. If one has the means and wants to be entertained by picking horses or playing roulette, then let the person enjoy him or herself in a clear conscience. However, it may become a source of spiritual limitation if the gambler is not spending available funds in entertainment, but is desperately trying to make his or her fortune. It's a self-delusive trap. For in an orderly universe, there is simply no way in which one can get something for nothing. Under divine law, you receive as you have given, no more and no less. If you feel you have been down on your luck, don't succumb to the temptation to try to make it big in some game of chance. And I'm sure many of us have done that. I'll raise my hand. I've done that. Like, I'm scared and I'm broke and I got things going. Let me go play the lottery.
Right, I got $2 left.
Right? That was operating in fear, and that was operating in a belief in luck. In make it big in some game of chance. Your fortune begins with you, not with the roll of the dice or with the winning number of any kind, or any kind of lucky break. There is only one way in which you can change your luck, and that is by altering your thoughts.
Right. So it is not a sin to gamble, right? But what is the mistake, which we know that a sin is a mistake, is the reason by which you are doing it, or the vibration under which you are doing it, is the mistake. Of Course in Miracles says mistakes are for correction. And so right now we're helping you correct some thinking. So it's fine to play games. But if you are conscious and aware and honest, why are you doing it?
Right.
Are you doing it for the fun of it? Or are you doing it because somewhere within you still believe in luck and chance?
Right. And so here's what happens. He shares a story about a man who, got a job and he believed it was by luck, and then later lost that job. And so then he believed that something was against him. And what we read here, Butterworth writes, for if you live in the belief of good luck as the key of getting ahead, then the other side of the coin is that bad luck can frustrate your progress. Yes. You simply cannot have one without the other. The man had set the trap for himself, and thus his bad fortune too began with him. This is that idea of how we're talking about how the law always works, right? It may be nice to feel like, oh, I'm lucky and I got good luck and this good thing happened. But unconsciously, that means you also believe that there is bad luck, and eventually that must outpicture in your life as this unwanted thing happened, and that must have been from bad luck, right? And we want to move out of that. He goes on, he says, your good is always deeply rooted in what Jesus called the kingdom of God within. And when he said, it is your Father's good pleasure to give you the kingdom, he was saying that your fortune is an unborn possibility of limitless life, and yours is the privilege of giving birth to it. As Walt Whitman sings, henceforth I ask not good fortune, I myself am good fortune.
I am good fortune.
And so that's one of the affirmations that I want you to that I want you to check in on. Let me get it here so you can have it. I am good fortune. This is how you get yourself out of the consciousness of good luck or bad luck, right? Take yourself out of, don't say I am lucky. I am good fortune. Echoing these powerful words of Whitman. Okay? Now there's another affirmation that comes right after that. I am a most important person to God, for I am God's living enterprise.
I have that one underlined.
I am a most important person to God, for I am God's living enterprise. Right? And it's really true. Each of us are an individual enterprise, an expression of the divine that chose to express itself as the enterprise that is Yolanda, as the enterprise that is Greg, as the enterprise that is you and you and you and you and you and you and your mama and all of them. I am a most important person to God. Please know that. That's a game changer by itself.
That takes us back to week 1.
For I am God's living enterprise.
I'm a demonstration of God.
Yes, yes. Yes, yes. Now, there's one final thing that I want to just touch on, because we don't have time to touch all of this. But there's the section where Butterworth talks about entropy and syntropy. And he's talking about this idea of what happens when we align with thoughts of fear, doubt, and worry. And that actually disintegrates and disorganizes in the same way that a machine eventually wears down over time. And then there's the idea of syntropy, where syntropy deals in harmonizing and organizing and bringing to wholeness. And so the idea is that when we're thinking thoughts of faith, when we're thinking thoughts that bring us into abundance, when we're affirming things like I am good fortune, then what we're doing, we're actually expanding ourselves and making ourselves more whole and more harmonious. Now, there's 2 words that he uses there, and I want to point them out because I think it's important. We love and respect Eric Butterworth and his work, which is why we're using this text. But we also know that there are blind spots. And so he talks about aligning with the good as aligning with the white cloud, and aligning with the negative as aligning with the black cloud. And it's very important that we remove ourselves from that type of language. And here's why. Because we recognize as people of color, all throughout time, it has been this conscious and unconscious, subtle and not so subtle way of aligning all things that are good with what is white, and all things that are bad or unwanted with what is black. And so we can read that and just be like, oh yeah, white cloud, black cloud, and not think anything of it. But that's the actually insidious nature of this very thing, that we have internalized these things in so many ways that we don't realize that it's actually out picturing in our lives. So we are not aligning with a white cloud or with a black cloud, right? One is positive, one is negative. We are aligning with love versus fear, right? I think it's also interesting, PY and I were talking this morning, when you think about the colors, one of the things is the color white actually repels light. Right? And the color black actually absorbs. And so when we think about it from that perspective, and we're thinking about what we want to align with, going back even to the example about the magnetizing ourselves, right? We want to absorb those things that are good. We want to absorb those things that are beneficial. We want to absorb those things that, is the text says, the Bible says, are of good report. Right. And so, if we want to use color, we would need to use it in that way. But I think it's so incredibly important, and we would be dishonest and we would be doing a disservice to humanity if we did not highlight that, because again, it's so subtle and you can read it and not think about it. but that's exactly what has happened over centuries. Again, as we were talking about this morning, you know, as people of color, we done too much work loving ourselves to now accept that word black being aligned with something that is unwanted, right?
And so we point this out because there's so much good in this text.
Yes.
Like I like to say, you know, eat what you want and leave the bones, right? What doesn't work for you, you leave it. But as PG said, it would be a disservice for us not to point it out and make sure that as we read these texts that they still are in alignment with the truth within us. Okay. And as anyone knows and evolves, all of us, there will be things that change in our understanding about spirituality. There'll be evolution in our understanding about spirituality. And so it's up to us now to point these things out.
Yes. Well, everybody, this has been another powerful class, powerful time. Again, feel free as you're reading the next chapter, chapter 3, which is on the law of visualization. Email your questions to truthsunday@celebrationsc.org. We have the God Talk, which will be happening at 1 o'clock. If you're not on our mailing list and you want to get the Zoom link and password to join the God Talk, you can actually use the information that's here on the screen. Just text WELCOME to that number, 347-472-1078. Text WELCOME. Don't text anything else. Just WELCOME. Right?
One word.
You will get a response to enter your information, and then after we have your information, then you'll also get an automated response with the Zoom link and information. If you're already on the mailing list, an email should have gone out. It was scheduled to go out at 12:30, so there's another link with that. And I think there's a post somewhere on Instagram that'll take you to a link, which will give you the information. So we look forward to seeing you all at 1 o'clock. Another thing I want to just highlight, if you don't already know, this is in the emails that we're sending out, but you can go to truthinunity.net. There are some resources here, and one of the things that I love about the resources here for spiritual economics is that it also includes audio of Eric Butterworth from some of his sermons as he's talking about a lot of these ideas, because really spiritual economics is an outgrowth of what he's been teaching, right? And so you can go to multiple sermons and tap into that. And it's just another resource. There's also a PDF that you can print out that has many of the affirmations there. So it's time for giving. And before we get into giving, I want to share something with you all that we're really excited about that's related to this. Let me go back to our slides because you got to see this. So at CSC, from the very beginning, in our first year, we made sure that we wanted to align with organizations that align with what it is that we're about, and wanted to be of service and support to our community. And so since 2013, we have partnered with Feeding America. We've been able to, we donate to Feeding America and providing many meals over the years to thousands of folks around the country and within the state of New York. And so as we were looking and thinking about the things that are happening related to the global pandemic, we reached out to Feeding America, and the guidance was Feeding America partners with local food banks. And so we wanted to partner with a local food bank in New York. And so we are partnering and donating to City Harvest here in New York, which serves all communities in New York and all New Yorkers. And so what we decided to do is we used their calculator and we wanted to make a donation. And so the number that we came to was $1,300. Now, one of the things is that $1,300 here, as it's reflected on their website, it's the equivalent of 4,800 pounds of food, right? Which is pretty awesome. What we also found is that by donating $1,300, that provides meals for 25 families of 3 for 4 months, right? And in addition to that, we found that by our donating, our gifts would be matched by BlackRock, which is a hedge fund. And so that means that we double our donation. So now that $1,300 turns into $2,600, which means that we feed 50 families of 3 for 4 months. And we are providing now 9,600 pounds of food, right? So we are grateful and thankful to be able to be of service in this way. And the reason why it reflects and takes us back to giving, one, your giving makes this possible. But as an organization, what we have done from the beginning, we tithe as an organization. And this is actually probably beyond what a 1 month tithe would be for CSC. But we tithe because we live in the vibration of giving. Now, just as we've been sharing with each and every one of you each week, that it's important, even if your income has shifted, that you find your joy number, whatever that is, and still give. It goes back to what we've been talking about today, because not giving more than likely is in the consciousness of I don't have enough. But giving is the consciousness of I have something, I have more than enough, and that vibration then multiplies. So in the same way, many churches, unfortunately, and we're talking to a lot of people and we're involved in a lot of forums, are living in fear, are living in the not enough, right? And so they're not even thinking about giving in this way. But we are conscious as an organization, Absolutely. And we are conscious as the leaders of this organization that there is more than enough, and we want to live in the vibration through our very actions. And so that's what this $1,300 donation is all about. There's more things coming for our members. Those of you that were at our annual member meeting, you know that we have some other things coming that are still online, and ways that we're going to impact the nation and really support people in their pocketbooks right where they are. But we wanted to start here as it specifically relates to the pandemic. So give what feels good. Find your joy number. The information is here. If you want to text to give, it's 347-744-9500. There's a $10 minimum because of the fees related to text to give, or you can just go to our website, celebrationsc.org/give, and give what amount feels good.
Always what feels good.
Always what feels good. Now, when we give from this consciousness, recognizing that we have, and as we have, we will always have, then and only then can we truly affirm all the money that I use, returns to me multiplied. In a never-ending cycle. Of increase. And enjoyment. And with that, we say amen.
Amen.
Ashe. And so it is.
So it is.
We look forward to seeing you all at 1 o'clock for the God Talk.
Love you all.
All right. Be well.